Hello guys, like you said, I'm Sergeant Langdown. I'm a member of the Army. I've been in the Army 15 years. I work as a careers advisor in Birmingham at the moment, and basically what I'm doing today is just having a chat with you about me, what I've done in my Army career, what the Army can offer you as maybe an opportunity when leaving school, going on to further education and things like that, okay? So to talk about myself first of all, like I said, I've been in the Army 15 years. I'm a combat infantry soldier, so I'm the fighting arm of the Army. But that doesn't mean there's not other jobs out there for people to do. I've been in 15 years. I've done lots of different job roles within that. I've specialised as a mortarman, which involves big bombs, big tubes, indirect weapon systems. I've also specialised as a mess manager, so I ran an officer's mess, a bit like running a hotel. So that was another job I did. Okay, at the moment, I go to schools, colleges, give presentations. I come to events like this. I do interviews of young guys and girls looking to join the Army, looking at their suitability and things like that. So that's me and what I've done. I've travelled. It's a fantastic opportunity to travel. I've been all over the world. Yes, there's a serious side, and I've been to Northern Ireland. I've been to Bosnia. I've been to Iraq, and I've been to Afghanistan. All right. On top of that, there's lots of fun travelling as well. So I've been to France, Germany, Holland, Norway, Canada 3 times, Kenya, okay? With this travelling, I learned to ski in Canada. I went on a horseback trek through the Rocky Mountains. I also went on safari in Kenya, okay? All this stuff was paid for by the Army. There's lots of things I've gained from the Army, my driving licenses. So I learned to drive, I got my Cat C licence, and even my C+E licence. On Civilian Street, it costs quite a lot to actually gain those qualifications, and you can actually drive those vehicles at a younger age within the Army. In the Army, you can drive a C+E vehicle at the age of 17 on a military vehicle. On Civilian Street, you wouldn't necessarily get a job driving until you're at least 25 because of insurance purposes. Obviously, as you can imagine, that saves you a lot of money as you go through. There's lots of jobs on offer within the Army. It ranges from about up to about 144. Obviously, there's lots of things that are dependent on that, whether that be qualifications or physical requirements and things like that, okay? These job categories that we cover is our combat. So your combat is the fighting arm of the Army. This is the forward fighting troops, the reconnaissance side of life. Very physical, active jobs. Within that, you have your infantry soldier, which we have different types of. You also have your tank crewmen, so the guys who work on the big Challenger tanks that we use within the Army. You also have your Army Air Corps, so you see the helicopters that fly around, the Apache helicopters, things like that. They're part of the fighting arm. And the Royal Artillery. Royal Artillery, massive part of the Army in the fighting force. Indirect weapon system. It's also an air defence weapon system that we use in warfare. And also they have what we call UAVs, which are unmanned air vehicles. I don't know if you've ever seen the adverts. Little plane, you throw it up in the air, fantastic little camera on the bottom, travels around, and we can see the ground, and it sends back a picture to a laptop. So we don't actually have to be in a dangerous situation to see what's going on the ground. When we design this, we all know that most of you are PlayStation generation or Xbox generation, depending on which way you go. They've actually made the controller with Microsoft to be an Xbox controller, because we all know it's easy for people to use. There's lots of other jobs within that. So the fighting arm couldn't do their job without other people to support them. So the support that we get covers different groups. One of them being our logistics support. Logistics support is the RLC mainly. These are our drivers, our suppliers, our storemen, and all these jobs that are covered within that, including our chefs. I wouldn't be able to eat if I didn't have someone to cook the food, because I can't cook very well, all right? We also have our HR and finance department. Some people go, oh, I don't want to join the Army, it's all about guns. Well, no, we deal with money, we deal with administration, because we all need to be paid. We're all soldiers, we all get paid a wage. I'm not very clever with computers. I get someone to sit there and do it for me and help me out with it, and that's why we have our HR and finance, okay? Also, we have a medical. Medical's a massive part of the Army that people don't necessarily see that we've got. Our medical covers lots of different strands of the Army, whether this be you join the Army as a fully qualified doctor, so you go off and gain all your qualifications and you go, actually, I want to be a doctor within the Army. This could be a nurse. there's two types of nurses in the army. Professionally qualified nurses. So if you're a professionally qualified nurse and you've been off and done all your qualifications, you can then come to the army and say, I was thinking of joining the army. Right, okay, what qualifications have you got? Oh, I'm a nurse. I've got these qualifications. And you could be given what we call a golden handshake up to almost £8,000, depending on your qualifications, just because you were already trained as a nurse. On the flip side to that, struggling to get through university. We all know university costs a lot of money for people these days. So ultimately, if you've got the right A-levels and GCSEs, we would look at you applying for the army and being a student nurse within the army. Bonus to that, they do their training at Birmingham University, and you get paid to go there on the proviso you're going to be an army nurse at the end of it. Healthcare technicians, so the lower side of the medical chain, but our medical cover veterinary, working with animals and things like that. As you can imagine, we have lots of animals within the army, ranging from horses, our sniffer dogs, our attack dogs and things like that. So we have our vets, our vet technicians. We also cover dog handlers and everything that goes along with that. So that's another role. Another role is, some of you may go, yeah, but I like music. I like music. I like playing my guitar. I quite like to sing. I want to follow a music career. Well, you could do that within the army as well. We have our music and ceremonial role. Like I said, I'm an infantry soldier. I do the fighting stuff, but I'm a Grenadier Guard. So I stand outside Buckingham Palace. I wear one of those big furry hats and a red jacket, like your man at the back there. All right? I wear exactly the same uniform. So we do the same job, but I also do that. Obviously, there's the ones that do ride the horses down in London. So we all do the Queen's birthday parade, the Trooping in the Colour. Very exclusive little club, very tight niche job. The Royal Horse Artillery, which is part of the artillery, is open to females as well. So females can look at going towards that route and working with the animals. And we also have the bands that play. You see the bands that play all the music. So there's the option to do lots within the army. Ultimately, I don't know a lot of your interests. A lot of you are probably sitting here looking to leave school and move in. One of the key things that the army offer, we all know that you guys who are going to leave school soon, by law, you've got to stay in school a little bit longer, or in education, or employment, or you've got to go into an apprenticeship. Or secondly, if you fail on your English, you've got to retake your English. Not great. I was quite lucky. But the difference being, the army can offer you a different option. If you wanted to go off to college to be a vehicle mechanic, let's say, okay, so, right, okay, I'm going to go be a vehicle mechanic. It costs you money to go to college. You don't get paid to go to college. The difference is the army have got their own foundation college where we send young guys and girls like most of you sat in front of me today, all right, and we pay you to go to college. Say, for example, vehicle mechanic, you would do what we call a short course at the Army Foundation College, which lasts about 6 months. That short course, in that time, you will learn military skills, how to become a soldier first and foremost, because we all need to be that first and foremost. And on top of that, you would then go on and do extra ICT, extra education, with it being a college. Once you finish that and you're successful, all right, you would then go away to do your what we call phase 2 training, which would be your mechanics training. This is about an 8-month course. At the end of that 8-month course, when you're successful, you're then employed with a guaranteed job in the army as a vehicle mechanic. You've gained all your qualifications, a driving license on top of that, and you've been paid to do it. What other college offers you that opportunity where we will pay you to go to college and gain qualifications, or we will pay you for 2 weeks to go on a driving course? There's some of the things that the army has to offer. Obviously, if you're slightly older, you would look at direct entry route into the army and what the army has to offer down that route. Similar, but we don't necessarily send you to college. It would be phase 1 and then phase 2 training. There's 2 sides to it. If you were looking at possibly going on to A-levels and degree, we could look at being in the management role within the army. So an officer within the army, possibly my boss, basically. I've worked up through my career over 15 years. Ultimately, an officer comes in as management level. You would look at going to the Royal Academy Sandhurst to do your training. You would look at going to university, maybe going to one of the UOTCs, one of the many UOTCs. It's a bit like a club where you get an insight into the army, but you get paid to do so. Also, there's a TA, or reservists as they're now called, okay? This is our part-time reserve service, okay? These guys are people who tend to have a job already, be settled in a certain area, maybe family, or maybe they don't necessarily want to take it as a full commitment. As you do this, there's lots of local units around your local area. So whether that's an engineer unit or an infantry unit, but you get paid for the time you do. So you may work a Tuesday evening, you may work at weekends, you may go on a 2-week annual exercise, those sorts of things, and you get paid for the time you do. But the bonus of that is you still get to stay around home, you still get to live in the same area, you still get to do your regular stuff that you do, but actually it's an interest on top that can lead to extra qualifications and everything else like that. Obviously, like I said, there's lots within the Army, and I could probably stand here going into detail about all the jobs the Army has to offer, from each scale and every range of the job, all right? There's lots out there, the engineering side of the Army, our vehicle mechanics and everything that comes with that, the medical side and everything else. But ultimately, I don't know your interests, and I may skip over some of them. So what I'm going to do is open it to the floor and see if anybody's got any questions. This doesn't matter whether it's a question about how long's training, what's the food like. You can ask anything you would like, guys. I really don't mind. Preferably, don't really want the question, have you ever been shot? Have you ever shot anybody? It's not really appropriate to be answering or asking, okay, guys? But anything else, you're more than welcome to ask about me, the Army as a whole, the TA, the regular side of the Army, joining as an officer or joining as a soldier. Okay? Has anybody got any questions then? 2 seconds, mate.
How long have you been serving?
How long have I been serving? Like I said at the beginning, I've been in the Army 15 years. It doesn't mean if you join the Army, you have to be in the Army 15 years. You may choose to use the Army as a stepping stone to go on to further careers, all right? So you may choose to do 4 years, which is the minimum regular contract within the Army, and then after that, look at using the qualifications and the experience you gain within the Army to move on to another career after that, okay? But you could look at going up to 24 years within the Army, depending on how your career progresses. Anybody else? Everybody must have a question. You can't tell me you haven't got a question.
So you join the Army and then you get sent to Afghanistan. What is the minimum staying period of your tour?
Say that again, sorry?
What is the minimum staying period of a tour in, say, Afghanistan?
The minimum tour in Afghanistan, it depends on job. It tends to be around the 6-month period. All the training you do beforehand, it tends to run for over a year. So you start, you know you're going, so you start with your training. You do the build-up training to make sure you're ready to go, all the current operational requirements that you need to meet. Once you've met them, you would then look at going on the, you would have some time off before you go. You would then go on the operations, which tends to be about 6 months. In that period of 6 months, you will have what we call leave in the middle. So if you're lucky, it'll fall right in the middle. Sometimes, because we all can't go at the same time, it might be closer to the end. So you then get to look at coming home for 2 weeks in the middle. You then go back out to Afghanistan, for example, spend a couple more months there. And then when you come back, you have a leave entitlement at the end. And it rolls in that process. So all in all, a tour of Afghanistan, you tend to go for about 6 months. Dependent, sometimes they can last up to 9. Sometimes they can be shorter to 4, all right? But with all the training, because you need a certain amount of training to go, the recent training, it tends to take up to a year. Anybody else? Anybody at the back? Come on, someone must have a question. How much do you get paid? How much do you get paid? Well, let's say you're 17. All right, guys? So you're 17 and you're at the Army Foundation College. You're going to be on about £18,000 a year. £18,000 a year roughly works out about £250 a week. £250 a week, well, that's quite good. Could be better, I suppose, but £250 is not bad. When you're on an apprenticeship, which is pretty much what you are in the Army, it's apprenticeship really. If you're on an apprenticeship on Civilian Street, out there in the real world, as such, as we like to call it, if you were doing that, you would be on about £2 something an hour on an apprenticeship without a guaranteed job. But obviously that's quite good. Me personally, I've been in the Army, like I said, 15 years. I've progressed through the rank structure, so I'm a sergeant within the Army. I take home £37,000 a year. It's a good amount of money. It's not a bad living to be bringing home. There's lots of benefits that come with that, my housing and everything else that comes with it. Anybody else? Got any questions, mate? Go on.
Would you have to cut your hair in the Army?
I'm terrible. My hearing's awful.
So when you joined the army, would you have to cut your hair?
Did I have to cut my hair? Everybody has to cut their hair to a degree. If your hair is for your religion, say you're a Rastafarian, for example, you are allowed to keep your hair for your religion, but obviously operational requirements. For example, if you were a Sikh, you're allowed to keep your beard, and they wear their turbans, okay? But for operational requirements, if there was a gas threat, for example, he would probably shave his beard so that the respirator would fit around his face. So yes, you are allowed to keep your hair if it was part of your religion as such. If it wasn't your religion, it was just fashion, then no, it would have to come off, mate. All right? Anybody else? No? Come on, girls, you must have a question at the back there. You just wanted a comfy seat, wasn't it? That's what it was. No more questions at all? No? Go on, mate.
What are the sport opportunities like?
Sport opportunities? Well, there's lots of sport opportunities. It depends how good you are at sport to a degree, and if you specialise in a sport. I've got a very good friend. Well, I would say good friend. I haven't seen him in about 5 years. But he was in the same regiment as me. He is part of the GB and Army bobsledding team. Cool. He's really fast. He likes ice. I don't know why. But because he was good and he was fast, he progressed in that sport. Pretty much, he's what we call a tracksuit soldier. He spends his life training and representing the Army and Great Britain in the Olympics, in the Commonwealth Games, and everything else, or the Winter Olympics and Commonwealth Games, and everything that comes with the winter side, and does that as his living. So if you are a keen sportsman or a good sportsman, there's the opportunity to be paid by the Army, but fulfill that sporting career. Dame Kelly Holmes was in the Army. Some of you probably won't remember him, but Chris Akabuski, the one who did that all the time, he was in the Army. Lots of sportsmen can use the Army as a footprint and a push to move on and help forward their career. If you're good, you could represent your regiment first and foremost. That's where you would start. You would then move on to Army trials and Army championships. You could then represent the Army against the Navy and the Air Force and things like that. If you're then at a certain level, you would represent tri-service, and then possibly, if you were lucky enough, move on to GB. Well, that could be any sport though. I've done lots of sports. I've done lots of whitewater rafting. I've done lots of stuff. Some people like to jump out of airplanes. Don't know why. But there's lots out there you can do, guys. It doesn't necessarily have to be football or rugby. There's lots of military army teams that are out there. Anything else? Well, if there's nothing else, guys, that's it from me. All right? It's been a pleasure talking to you. If you do want to find out more, the best place to find out more information about the Army, and all it's going to take is 10, 15 minutes of your time, which is some of you probably spend longer doing your hair or your makeup, all right, is to go on the Army website, okay? Go on the Army website or just Google Army jobs and have a look. You'll be surprised what opportunities and what jobs there are available to you, whether that's within any of the trades I've mentioned, or the foundation college, or as an adult entrant, or maybe an officer within the Army. Thanks a lot.